Good morning, everybody, and happy Saturday to you. Happy September to you. You guys are tuning in, and you guys, in honor of September being National Suicide Awareness Month, for those out there that are dealing with those sort of losses, my heart is with you. And we're going to keep bringing some special guests to help educate you guys to get through those things. And today's guest is a very special person to me. She has been on the show before, and she's going to be up here. We're going to be talking about this today. So you guys, be prepared. Now, before we get started, if this is your first time tuning in, do me a favor, head on over to that YouTube channel, hit that subscribe button, hit that bell notification, so you'll be notified every time that we drop a new episode. And if you have any questions or comments, please put them in the comment section. Now, before I bring on my next guest, please understand that this is for educational purposes only, and we will be answering those questions as we go along. So without further ado, you guys, help me welcome my wonderful friend and guest, Miss Tracy. Tracy, how you doing today?
I'm good, Tony. How are you?
I'm doing well. Welcome back to the show. It's been a while.
Thank you. Yeah, I think it was May that I was on here with you.
Yeah. You've been busy.
I have.
I know you've been out there doing your thing, and I love it. I'm here for you. You already know. Now, before we get started, tell people where you're from, tell people who you are, the work that you do, and tell people what we're going to be talking about today.
Sure. So my name's Tracy Oeser. I'm down here in Springfield, Missouri, and I work in the field of suicide postvention, which is a fancy word for suicide loss support. So I do trainings, I do presentations all about suicide grief, loss, what that looks like, and how others can, just help support others in their grief.
Wow, man. Wonderful work that you do, and a very good time of the month to be talking about this. What we're going to be talking about today.
So today I want to talk about, again, postvention. We spend a lot of time in September talking about prevention, which is totally important. I think it's very important that we talk about prevention, but I really want to educate people that there's this whole segment of prevention that, kind of goes unnoticed. We don't talk about enough. And that is our survivors of suicide loss and what their grief looks like, and what, just not supporting them effectively, how that evolves into, potentially further suicide. We don't talk about that enough. So I'm glad to be on here to share with your listeners about this important message.
I'm glad that you're here, because it is important. I think it's such a not talked about subject. And You're right. There's a lot of times that people do not talk about it, because I think most of the time we're trying to figure out why these things happen, the what ifs, right? The could-haves, the should-haves, and things like that. It leaves a lot of questions that we don't talk about, those that have left behind.
Yeah. And, again, I mean, it's devastating to the loss survivor, but then I think as society, we just say, okay, these people are off dealing with their grief.
Mm-hmm.
There's the misnomer that there's people helping them. And in reality, we need to give these poor loss survivors more support than we do. Because, I can point to different research studies, even in other countries, about how suicide loss that goes untreated or, unsupported can increase their own suicide risks up to 60% sometimes.
Wow.
And that's a high number. I mean, if we lose someone to suicide, we already have the scientific data that says 135 people are going to be affected by that one loss. And in the United States in 2022, we had close to 50,000 people who died by suicide. And so if you do the math, we're talking about 6 million people somehow affected, whether it's directly, whether it's indirectly, whether it's, devastating because it was in their household, or maybe it's just an acquaintance and you knew of them. But somehow, 6 million people by the deaths in 2022 were affected by suicide. And, I'll go on to say that because I work in grief support, and I go to peer support groups, and I go to different events that our loss survivors are at, I'm constantly hearing that they don't know where to go. They don't know who to talk to. And so, of course, I point them to the people who are trained in the field to support them. But then I've learned that we have behavioral health folks who want to help because that's why they got in the field to begin with.
Mm-hmm.
But that, some of them aren't getting adequate training on how to support grief and loss from suicide, because grief and loss from suicide is kind of its own little animal over here, right? It
Right.
has its own nuances and its own layers of grief that, we really can't just compare it to losses that we would expect, like losing someone to suicide, or I'm sorry, to sickness or accident or suicide. People are stigmatized because they lost someone to suicide, which isn't their fault, that someone made a choice to do this.
Right.
And so, and again, like you said, I think we have fear. We don't, the general public, they don't necessarily know, how do you approach someone? You don't want to upset them. You don't want to upset them further and make them cry and all of that, which I work with a lot of people through that, those things. And we can certainly get into that, in a bit, but it's just so vast. And typically, historically for me, these past 18 years, when we get to Suicide Prevention Month, I've tended to just kind of shy away, or, not really get, not really have a big social media presence during September.
Right.
Not because I don't agree with prevention, certainly, but because so many loss survivors hate Prevention Month, because they take that as kind of a slap in the face, really, of where was prevention when my person died? Right. And so you have a lot of hate going on. So I want to, support them. But this year I said, you know what? I'm changing it up a bit. And I'm really going to push the message that postvention is prevention, because we have to keep our suicide loss survivors alive and functioning and able to, get some normalcy back into their life, as well as help other loss survivors, to come up alongside them. So sorry, I kind of rambled there, but that's in a nutshell is
Tracy,
our loss survivors need support.
Yeah, you're definitely good, because I've been very active. I'm just like yourself, for when it comes down to suicide awareness and things like that. Although I talk about the steps that I took to almost take my own life. I kind of like leave that to those individuals that know more about it than I do. Right. Mm-hmm. And again, just like yourself, it's almost like we've just been thinking the same thing. I'll be like, no, this time I'm going to make some noise. Right. And if, we both work in the grief field, and I work with men. And of course, you see the statistics when it comes down to men. I said, no more, because I've been doing this work now close to 6 years. And although I do provide the space for the men to be able to come and talk, we do have those men that are still struggling with suicidal ideation, that are affected. I mean, I have men who have lost multiple friends, or even children, wives, or their partners to suicide. And I see the aftermath. But just like you said, the one thing that we don't think about is the other people that are affected. We always looked at the immediate family. Right. And then, but we never think about the friends. We never think about the friends of the friends, or, all of these people that was touched by this individual, and how it really affects them. And it hurts me. And I'm right there with you. I'm over here. I got a tear coming to my eye right now, because I was just thinking about someone that I'm working with right now. And this just right now, I just want to just hand it over to you, and take us down some paths that we would, and let us know what we can do as a community, as a society, to be able to be better at what we do. I am QPR certified and everything, and I never, Tracy, you already know. I always think to myself, I don't do enough, right? And people are always like, no, you're doing a lot. I was like, no, you don't understand. I don't do enough. And just right now, I feel like I never do enough.
Well, I think it's really about mindset. I think we have to change the narrative of the mindset in this country that, well, worldwide, not just in the US, but we have a mindset that there's people to do that. There's people out there for that. Meaning, that you've lost, you see somebody who's lost someone and you go, oh, there's therapists that will help them.
Right.
There's, community organizations that will help them. There's people for that. The reality is we don't have enough community organizations to go around. So it takes all the rest of us to have connection with our community around us. So I guess, don't assume that person is getting the help they need, because there's a good chance that they're not. There's a good chance they're struggling in their own space. And, if we talk about men with suicide loss, when we're talking about dads, right? You have fathers that, the concept is that men support their family. They're the head of their household. There's you can speak to this, I'm sure, but, there's probably like a control element, right? I control my space. This is my house. Bad things aren't going to happen in my house. And then something does. And there's probably a personal sense of failure maybe in there. There's probably, grief that they don't know what to do with because they're supposed to be macho. They're supposed to be the ones in charge. Mm-hmm. And that leads to a lot of, unsaid grief, just a lot of people that need help that aren't getting it. Right. I was talking to a mom who had lost her son to suicide about 3 years ago. And she was sharing her story with me that her husband ultimately took his own life 18 months after their child did. And she didn't realize that he was at that point where he would make that choice. I mean, he was sad and all the things we would expect, but she didn't realize he was to that level of distress. And then he was gone. And so now she has, dual losses that she has to navigate through. And so, as a community, I think we make things more complicated sometimes than they have to be. Yeah. It's really as simple as just checking on people, just saying, hey, how you doing today? And it isn't just asking, it's being prepared for the response. I think, we don't ask because we don't want to deal with the response. We go into like the grocery store, we're checking out our groceries, and we say to the checker, hey, how you doing? And they go, fine. And we move on. But what do you do if somebody says, I'm just having a really crappy day and I'm really, I'm struggling? Then we go, oh, okay, we don't know what to do. I think it all comes down to fear. I think it's fear we don't know what to do. It's fear we don't know what to say. It's fear in speculating what we think our answer is going to do to that other person. So meaning, I get a lot of people that say, I don't want to talk to a loss survivor because I don't want to make them cry, or I don't want to remind them that they're going through this. And I tell people, well, first of all, they know they're going through it. You're not going to remind them that this is happening. But just the acknowledgement that you see them, that you cared enough to say, or to ask, how are you? And we got to get rid of this fear, because it's the fear that stands between us and that person that needs us. And I think we could just turn around a whole lot of grief and, further suicides if we ask those questions of just, how are you doing? Is there something you need? Is there something I can do for you? Right. Or, even if you're uncomfortable with that, just pat them on the shoulder. Because so many loss survivors that I talk to say, I just want to be seen. I want to not be alienated because I went through this. Right. And, the other issue that we have is we have this concept that grief is for a small amount of time. And so, society says, you're not over that yet. You're still crying 6 months later.
Yeah.
What's wrong with you that you're not past this? So that adds another element of grief and anger and on the part of the loss survivor. And so, we got to push this narrative out that grief is timeless, right? These are people we loved, that we cared about, that, potentially were an integral part of our daily family. We're going to miss them. We're going to miss them. We're going to cry. We're going to be upset. We're going to be upset at holidays. We're going to be upset at birthdays and anniversaries and anything that happens out in the world that might potentially remind us of things they like to do or places they like to go.
Right.
We're going to be upset. So, have enough respect for us as, just human beings that we're going to grieve. We're going to grieve, and that's okay. And, if you can't handle that, just respectfully, just, don't interact with us, but don't be rude to us, and don't, devalue what we're going through. Because again, that just leads to more animosity.
I agree. Totally agree. You said a lot of things that are very, I started putting together these pieces, right? And I've started hearing these similarities across the board that I think a lot of people just really look over, right? Mm-hmm. The one thing that you said, people are afraid to have the conversation if someone was to say, I'm not doing well today. Mm-hmm. And we kind of freeze up because, it's a sad statement, but I heard the statement. People don't care what you're going through as long as it's not happening to them.
Yeah.
Right. And it's when I first heard, when you said that statement just hit me so hard because I realized the truthness in it. Mm-hmm. The depth of the truthness was really hurtful when I think about that, because I've talked to I'm starting to go into working with a little bit of the youth and things like that in 2024, and I'm still learning how to work with the youth. Mm-hmm. But I still use some of the techniques I use with the older men with some of the youth. It's just a different approach.
Right.
And I have never seen or ever had so many young men, young boys out there that have lost so many of their friends to suicides. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And when I think about that, it's like I think about the layers that come along with that, the different types of suicides. And I'm going, we're missing this, right? There's the gap right there, and we're missing the mark.
Yeah.
There are kids out there that are doing it, and it looks like an overdose. Mm-hmm. Right?
Yeah.
There are kids out there that are doing it because they've been bullied, mm-hmm. And things like that. And the trickle-down effect, or like you said, they have lost friends, so many friends, and they're just tired of the loss, and they're young. Now, I'm an older gentleman, and I look at this and I go, wow, I have lost so many people to suicide, and I even tried to take my own life. And I really wish somebody would have asked me how I was doing. Mm-hmm. Now, I look at the other side too. If you would have asked me how I was doing, would I have been truthful to you?
Right.
Because as a man, right, you're right. There's an element of protection or providing. Although you may not be mine, I want to protect you from my dark thoughts. I don't want to be a burden to you and put that upon you. So when we think about that, do we factor those things in as well as a community, as people, right? Do we even think about those things, right? Do we think about the shame and the guilt? Mm-hmm. You hit on another one. You know, when we talk about the adults, and now I'm just going to put everybody together because there's so many commonalities across the board. And I think we can
Sure.
talk about this in more universal form,
Yeah.
instead of separating the genders,
Right.
and go, you know, as a parent, as a sibling, and things like that. When we think about, when we start to look at the situation, we ask ourselves across the board, where did we go wrong? What could I have done? And we're mad at the individual that done it, right? And in turn, we internalize these things, male,
Mhm.
female, young and old, and it's so common across the board. And over a period of time, in some ways, not having the conversations about it make it seem as if we have a tendency of putting that blame on ourselves, but then we look at the multiple people that may have thought the same thing. We don't think about the friend, right? Or the
Mhm.
friend of the friend that this person was with,
Mhm.
that's probably thinking the same thing. There was a podcast, and it had one of the twins on there, Tamara.
Mm.
And I remember talking about this. She was asked during the podcast, "How are you doing?" And her reply was so emotional because she said, "I'm doing okay." And then within like a couple seconds, she broke down and started crying.
Sure.
And the person goes, "Are you okay?" She goes, "It's just been a while since anyone has asked me if I was okay."
Mhm.
What are your thoughts, after listening to all of it? And see, I ramble on too, so don't feel bad.
But you have relevant things to say also.
Right. And, you know, so what are your thoughts? What are your thoughts on those things? And how do we have the conversation? Right? Because the beautiful part about it is now, Tracy, is that we do see these support groups coming up, right? So there are resources that are starting to come
Mhm.
about.
Yeah.
How do we get how two things? How do we have the truthful, honest, in-depth conversation with those that are affected by it? And two, how do we get better certifications to be able to handle the aftermaths and the trickle down effect that it has with those individuals?
Well, I agree with, like you said, we have to ask people how they're doing. We have to eliminate the fear of the response.
Mhm.
And so, I did a bunch of webinars over the past few months just talking about fear, because I think as a human being, we tend to shy away from anything we're scared of, which makes sense, but we can't be scared of this topic, and so
Right.
we have that fear, and we tend to shy away because we don't know what to do. So I'm on a mission to educate people to say, let's eliminate the fear. We have fear if we don't understand what something is going to do. So we don't know how people are going to respond to, how are you doing? So I want to, teach people of what to do, what to say, what not to say. What not to say is a big one.
Right.
Don't people don't want to talk about the method of how that person died, or the events of, that particular moment in time. They just want to know that, life will go on, and they want to know that there's a support system out there for them.
Mhm.
I would say, if you know of a resource, whether it be a support group, whether it be of a really great behavioral health person, with, social worker, therapist, whatever it may be, if you know of someone like that, share it out. I mean, we have so much reach on social media
Mm.
that, it's nothing to just, jump on Facebook on your personal account and just put in there, if you're struggling, I know of XYZ resources, and just share it. Um, we need to do better to just understand that we are, um, part of the way to fix what's going on in our society. We can't keep depending on the other people. to fix it.
Right.
We're part of this. And so, when you were talking, I was thinking, I hadn't shared with you, but my Journey Through Grief YouTube channel is coming out with a 5-part series about losing different relationships to suicide. And so I've already done the interviews. I've had 5 interviews, from sibling loss to parent loss to child loss, all the different types of relationships. And, some of these people that I talk to, they work in the field. They do this work all the time. They've lost their people, maybe a decade ago.
Right.
And just the simple question of, how's your grief changed, or how are you doing today, brought out an emotional response from them. So, this is something we need to recognize, that, we don't just grieve for a couple days and then we put it away and we're done with it. Right. And we, the people like Tamara, right? I didn't see that particular, podcast.
I was scrolling through on YouTube, and I happened to catch the interview, and I watched it all the way through, because I'm always.
She lost her brother, didn't she?
Yes, I think she lost her brother, because she has a twin sister, right. And they've been on TV for a very long time. So of course you see the celebrity, the shining lights, the the fame and things like that, but they're human beings, and they still are affected by grief, and those losses as well.
Sure.
And it was.
We can't assume.
Huh?
We can't assume that people are getting help.
Right. We can't assume, right? And the more and more you and I we dive into this, I start to look at all of these things, and I can only imagine how their world looks after having to have experienced those losses, right?
Mm-hmm.
And now it got me to thinking, like, the fear that must set in when you see someone that is close to you after that, right? The fear of losing them to suicide, and things like that. And it's an ongoing thing. Like, and I think after that, it changes the dynamics of how we approach people, how we speak to people. And I think those that have experienced that and are trying to move and navigate this new world with this newfound fear, we have a tendency to want to coddle individuals that we even come across, right? Yeah. But in the same sense, we try to hide. We hide that loss as well, right? Yeah. And that whole common thing, we're afraid how it's going to affect them. Right. This loss is may make you uncomfortable. So what I'm going to do, I have to put again on this mask of strength and humility to accommodate. To accommodate. And now I'm looking at the whole thing from a 360 point of view. And as we talk more and more, it's like, wow, we have to do better. And I see out here, because I'm out here in Colorado, and I work with a lot of organizations and things like that, that, the Alliance of Suicide Prevention, but shout out to them today as well. Because I know they're out there doing events and so many other different individuals. But what I don't see, or what I see the lack of unity, the collaboration between these organizations coming together to do something bigger,
right?
And I think that's where our challenge becomes. I mean, because we can have the resources in there. I always look at, how can I work with this individual to do something bigger and have a bigger impact in these different areas in our community, right? But I go out there and it's like, oh, this person is doing an event over here on this day, and this organization is doing an event over here on this day. I'm like, you know what? I go to them and I'm going, well, where's the rest of the booths? Where's the rest of these individuals that do this? Why aren't you guys working together?
Yeah.
Why do you think that is? Why does it feel like such a competition, between each other?
It does. It feels like a competition. It feels like everybody, even if they're doing good, they're kind of doing good in their own little space.
Mm-hmm.
I met with somebody a couple weeks ago that's in the same city that I am, and they're getting ready to put on an event here in a couple weeks. And I was doing an event last weekend, so I was collecting her, flyers and whatnot to have at my event so that
Right.
I could share it, And she made the comment that she was doing all this community outreach so that people would know this event was happening.
Right.
And I was like, well, I'm in this same area and I don't see any of it. And, I don't think the people that put on events and work in this space are bad people by any sense. I think they're all trying to do good. I think that we, I can even say for myself, I think we get so wrapped up in our day-to-day, doing our thing, getting awareness out, that we just assume that everybody out there knows what we're doing and knows that all this stuff is happening behind the scenes. And, as this friend is telling me, oh, I have, advertisements up on billboards in town, and we're out doing bingo events to raise money over here. And I'm like, okay, but I live here and I'm not seeing any of it. Right, I know it's happening, but I'm not seeing it. So I don't know if it's louder voices. I don't know if it's bigger media representation that we have to have, or what the answer is. I mean, I've been battling through this for 18 years now of, how can we get the word out? Because we still have the people that come to me and say, oh my goodness, I didn't even know we had these resources. Oh my goodness, nobody told me.
Yeah.
So, if I could find that magic button, right, of how we get all of our info out. And again, I agree with you. I think maybe it's these organizations, we all pull together. Maybe we get 10 of us together and just do one big, huge,
right. But
media event.
But do multiple, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now, this is my field right here. You know what I'm saying? Because as a male, when I got into this field, I started looking at social media and I started seeing the downsides to it, like, the personal info that people were going on. But I started looking at the upsides. And, and again, I taught myself these things, and I've been very effective over the years of getting the word out there as well. The podcast, how can I be better at letting people know that I was there, right? And so I made it a point, because I'm annoying when it comes down to this. Look, I am very annoying, and I will go out. I will be on social media because you have 800 billion people in the world, and at any given time, you have anywhere from 400 to 500 billion people on social media. Mm-hmm. And when I educate people on this, or mentoring people, I'm like, your hashtags are a big thing. Now, if you got 10 of you out there, I would say, if you got 10 of you out there, become annoying on social media. Let everybody, you should not be able to scroll through any platform and not see anything going on. But people shy away from the social media because of all the drama that may come along with it. Like, no, look past that. Don't even think about the comments or anything like that. The goal is to get the word out there. I don't care if I have to do a hybrid where I'm doing in person or and virtual. I will combine them too. I will go, you good at virtual stuff. Can we bring in something to bring up this over? I would have a live podcast going with a panel discussion, right? Just so more people can be aware. I would be hashtagging my city. I would be hashtagging my state. I want you to know that we are here. And of course, I'm old school. So I'm going out there, I'm beating the concrete. I'm making sure that the concrete knows that I'm there, because I'm leaving footprints. I'm cracking it underneath my feet. That's how hard I'm hitting it, right? Sure. And then I'm like the road runner, because I got to get, if I have 10 neighborhoods, I'm trying to get to 12. I
Mm-hmm.
promise you. I'm running. Phew, 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 phew. You may turn around and close your door, and I just put a notice on your door and gone. Right? I'm out. I'm down to the next one. Right? And next thing you know, I'm all over town.
Yeah.
And I'm bringing, look, I'm a huge advocate of supporting my brothers and my sisters in this field and everything that we do, because I love this thing called grief and I love everything about it. I love supporting people. I love showcasing the light on those that are out there doing amazing things and letting people know that they are out here doing this. Go connect with them. And I'm just like, you mind if I put you down as a resource, right? Because if I look, anything I do, it has nothing to do with me. As we talked about the magazine serves that purpose. I want people to know, because that's why I ask for those things. Like, write the articles so people know, but I'm also going to put you in as a resource so people know how to get in contact with you. Where you at? All of those different things. Yeah. And the fact that you did a 5-part series on this, here's the thing, Tracy. I wish I would have known that you were doing it, because I would ask you, how can I support you and at least have something that I could put on the website, on the podcast, right? And also include it into my. But see, I'm that guy.
Well, see, and like I said, I think I already said, I'm just as bad as everybody else, that I'll sit here in my own little cocoon. And I mean, the podcast or the YouTube series idea just came about because I was sitting in my office. Yeah. And I'm like, what should I do? And I thought, we're losing these relationships to suicide. We're not just losing people. We're losing actual sibling relationships, parent relationships, all of that. And so I thought, well, I'm just going to reach out to people that I know and, that fit the description here, and see if we can chat for a little bit. So believe me, I will be sending stuff to you right before
I'm looking for it. I'm looking for. Don't threaten me with a good time now. This is a good time, right?
So, but I didn't reach out to the world and say, hey, I need somebody to come and talk to me about XYZ relationship. I just already knew who to ask. So I did that. But, I agree with you. And I wish we could take you and clone you about 5 million times and throw you out on every city in America and have, somebody running around in the street saying, hey, let's talk about suicide. Let's talk about suicide loss. Let's talk about grief. And because we need to normalize these conversations. Exactly. We need to accept the fact that your neighbor, your coworker, your person that, you get coffee from every morning on your way to work, whoever, they probably have some experience just by sheer data and multiplying the numbers. I guarantee you they have some association or experience themselves with a suicide loss, or someone that they are trying to support who is struggling. We're all going through it. Let's stop with the attitude that, oh, it's not affecting me. Sorry about them, but hope they're well. No, we got to be able to just acknowledge that this is happening for people, right? And do what we can. And I'm all, I know I'm sitting here saying, oh, go have a conversation and go hug people. And, I'm totally aware that that's not in some people's comfort zone, to just go up and start talking to strangers. No, I recognize that. If you're not the type of person that can go do that, you're the person that needs to be sharing out the event you saw on social media that's coming up, or the social, or the, we have suicide prevention walks that the American Foundation of Suicide Prevention puts on all year. Yeah. If you know that there's a walk, just share it out. I guarantee you are helping somebody somewhere find what they need just by sharing your knowledge.
It's just like everything, right? And you said something. Now let's do the math. But first, I want to say good morning to Rachel for tuning in. Thank you this morning, Rachel. Thank you, Lenny Hunt, for tuning in. He asked a question about what we was talking about, and you definitely put it out there. So we are talking about suicide awareness in honor of suicide, September being Suicide Awareness Month. And so I have my dear friend Tracy up here. She's this is her jam. This is her area. And so she's educating us today about those individuals who are affected, the multiple individuals, not just the direct, but the indirect as well. And she's helping us understand what we can do to be better about giving that support, having the correct education, and how can we be better as a community in a whole, or as human beings in a whole, to help normalize having the conversations around it, and what does that look like? So hopefully that answers your question. And thank you again for tuning in, and for everyone else who are tuning in on Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, Twitter, Rumble. You guys already know how we do it. Put your comments in the comment section. We'll be sure to get to them as we're going along. Now,
and something else I wanted to say, Tony, really quick, is, I had mentioned earlier that September just irritates me because our loss survivors are overlooked in the suicide prevention arena. But something else I want to say is the fact that your listeners are probably being bombarded through social media right now of everything happening with Suicide Prevention Month. Mm-hmm. There's 11 other months in the year that we're not talking about suicide. So we tend to throw everything into September, which is great. I'm glad that stuff gets, put out there. But there's 365 days in a year, and the other 335 days are just as important. Same thing with loss. Our International Survivors of Suicide Loss Day is the Saturday before Thanksgiving every year. Loss survivors get one day. 364 days a year, they're struggling, they're hiding, they're alienated, all the stuff. Let's talk about suicide prevention and suicide loss in the same, fervor attitude all the rest of the year, not just now.
Right. I totally agree. Because grief, it has no set time or day or anything like that. Now, don't get me wrong. I do love the fact that that we do have something. It's a start, but it's just a start. We have so much more that we can do. Yeah. We have so much more. Now, like let's do the math, right? Let's do the math. If we think about all the people that we work with, and things like that, our social media presence that we have. So say, for instance, Tracy, you may have 10,000 people on your end, or more on your end that's watching that's awareness, right? So that's 10,000. Now you may have other organizations that may have a little bit more, a little bit less, right? And you begin to put the numbers together. You begin to put the numbers together. When you turn around and you have 200,000 people in combination, now let's multiply that of times the people that they may have following them.
Right.
And they shared across their platforms. You've just now, within a matter of minutes, seconds, you've just now reached over 1 million people. Yeah. People never really think about this, but I constantly do. Like I said, I'm annoying.
And let's go further with that. Okay.
Let's do it.
So let's say that you have someone and they've reached out and you've touched that 1 million people. Okay. Now let's say just one of that 1 million was someone who just lost their spouse.
Yes.
2 months ago to suicide, and they're sitting on their couch and they don't know what to do. What if that message that went out, what if the one of the 1 million who was going to go take their own life today because they couldn't handle the grief anymore?
Yes.
And they read that message on social media and it stopped them from dying. That's the kind of impact that we can have by acknowledging stressors and acknowledging the disparities that go on in our communities, the job loss, the addictions, the homelessness, the grief and loss that is happening every day. What if we save that one person because we just threw something out on social media that got to the right person at the right time?
Exactly. And that's why I say I'm annoying, right? Because I have no problems with adding someone into a post, right?
Mm-hmm.
As a matter of fact, I always, when I scroll through, when I scroll through and I see these posts and things like that, especially of people that I know, I'll take it and I'll share it out. To share it out across my network, and I encourage other people, hey, if you see this, share this out across your network.
Yeah.
And it goes out there, and and you get that feedback that comes back, and you realize how many people are doing the same things. So, and again, I'm annoying. It doesn't take much for me to go in and create 10 posts, right, for the day.
Yeah.
And you may not see it all day long, but when you wake up in the morning, you see them strolling all the way through your social media.
I see them. I see your stuff all the time.
Again, you cannot go through social media. You cannot scroll through any one of your platforms and not see anything that I do. And I tell people that all the time. I do that for a reason. Because for one, I want people to be aware of and want to come and know what I do, right? Because I want to support those in the field as well. And I want to bring that support to my communities because I love my communities and I want to see the people in there heal and have the right people connected with them. So yeah, I am just that guy, and I wish more people was that way. I'm not trying to compete with you. I'm not trying to compete with nobody because I see the importance of the unity that we can have and how everything kind of intertwines with each other.
Yeah.
And I go, maybe I may be lacking in education in this area, but I know someone who is phenomenal at doing this. And you know what I'm saying? And I look at the awesomeness. I'm like, I got Tracy. You know what I'm saying? Oh yeah, Tracy, I'm about to not only take your post and throw it across mine, but I'm gonna tag you in it just so you know that I'm tagging you in it. And then from there, I'd be like, you mind if I add this in there so people know a little bit more? And I go in, I'll create 5 more posts on there with your stuff on there, right? But I have no problems with doing that. I have no problems with doing that. And it's switching the mindset of our trauma and grief workers, our behavioral health therapists. As you said, Tracy, the most important part is getting the mindset out of competition into working together in unity.
Yes.
And for the greater good of everyone else, because it's not about us. We have gone and still go through our own experiences, our own grief. And I think that's where we're educated the most because of our lived experience. And we know you know more in depth about this than I would, right? Because I mean, I was just a guy. That's it. I was just a guy.
I was just a single mom. So yeah.
Right. Yeah. Exactly. Right. You know what I'm saying? But when we look at it in that aspect, we make it, if we can look at it in that aspect, we can make it more about the people than we do ourselves through our passion and compassion for those, because we do see their effects and how we can come up with healthy solutions to help.
Well, yeah, that's it. I mean, that's what we need. We need the healthy solutions.
Right.
What's interesting is back in 2019, when I decided to quit my full-time job and do this full-time, I thought, just by looking at what people were posting on social media and such, I thought, oh my gosh, we don't have enough resources out there for the people that need them. I'm going to have to create a whole bunch of stuff. And, I created some things, and then I got in my network and I started talking to people, and then, the pandemic happened. So now I'm stuck in my house and I can't go anywhere. So now I am on social media looking at nationwide programs and worldwide programs and, whatever we can capture online. And in doing that, I realized that we have so many programs and resources and people to help that I didn't need to create anything. The problem isn't that we don't have enough resources. The problem is we're not getting the resources that we have out to the people who need them.
Yes. Yes.
And I don't know exactly why that is. I like to think it's because of the stigma that surrounds suicide. But yeah, but there's so many great people doing so many great things out there that just, can change a life because the right person found it when they needed it. We got to be talking about those programs. So it gets totally back to what you were saying, that, we know of something, we share it. We know that somebody is doing some great work, we share that. We get out of this mindset of competition. I think, some of the bigger organizations, they get into this competition of, oh, I want to be the one that brings this message out. Right, I'm not going to tell anybody I'm going to talk about this because I don't want that organization over there to snatch the idea. And in the midst of all of this infighting and, trying to be the person with the thing, the people out in the field, the people out in the world are not getting it. They aren't getting the stuff they need. Right. We gotta, like you said, we gotta think more of people, not people as numbers, not people as purchasers, or whatever the case may be. We got to get the word out that, hey, we're going to be a stronger country, a stronger nation, a stronger world if we're healthy. And we can't be healthy if we aren't sharing the tools that people need in order to get healthy. And like you say you're annoying. I'm annoying too. I have a lot of people that just kind of run the other direction when they see me coming because they're like, oh, she's going to talk about suicide again. And yes, I am. Yes, I am. Yes, I am. And I'm going to talk about, the training and the education that our poor behavioral health staff need, that, we assume that they get. I went through my bachelor's degree, my master's degree, all in psychology. In no college class that I had did we ever talk about suicide or suicide, grief, loss, ideation, none of it. The word didn't come up. I talked about it. Again, I think they were glad when they graduated, they didn't have to deal with me anymore. But
I would have came back just to deal with you again.
Right. But they don't recognize, people, what do we do here? What I try to do is I try to look at processes and what do we do when XYZ happens, right? So if I look at, okay, we hear about somebody dies by suicide. And we know they left behind, maybe 3 family members and a bunch of outside the family people. What happens? We say, oh, okay, you need to get some therapy. Great. We send them, we say, here, go find a therapist. We tell them, go find a therapist. We don't produce a list of, here's who's in your area, right? We say, go find a therapist. But okay, let's say that they're in the midst of their debilitating grief. Let's say they're proactive and they're able to go find their own therapist. They run a good risk that therapist has never been trained in suicide bereavement, has never been trained in complicated loss. That's not the fault at all of the behavioral health person. They were probably hoping that they wouldn't get a client like that and probably assumed they, that because other therapists get those type of clients, right? But say, oh, that person's there now. Oh my gosh, what do I do? 10 to 1, that therapist refers them out to a different therapist. Right. Which I understand you want to get them to the right person that's going to help. But what does that do to the loss survivor? Okay. You've taken a loss survivor who didn't really want to leave their house. They probably just finally got in a car to go to that therapist. That therapist says, oh, I can't help you. Or wings it and tries to help them and makes it worse. That person is like, well, I don't want to see this therapist anymore. And that was too traumatic to try to find one. I'm not going to go at all. And then you end up 5 years later with this person who's like totally, jeopardized with their own mental health because they didn't get the help they needed 5 years ago when they needed it. I hear stories about this all the time. And so let's recognize the fact that our behavioral health people, our social workers, our therapists, all of them need some kind of training in suicide prevention and ideation and grief. We have some states that mandate a certain amount of hours. So I don't want, somebody to think we've got nothing, which is not true. But, I will call out Washington State because I used to live there.
Right.
And I will say every 6 years they're required to have, I think it's like 6 hours of suicide prevention training. People fail to realize how much the field changes over 6 years.
Yes.
So that is nowhere near enough training to understand what goes on at all these different levels of grief. We have some states that don't mandate any training at all. So, people that live there, I can't guarantee they're getting the help they need. So we need to understand we can't just say, oh, you just went through this horrific experience, go get some therapy.
Right.
Because that might not be the right answer. We need to look at other options. There's life coaching there, which is not therapy, but it can still be a benefit to someone who's grieving that needs to talk out what's going on with them. Yes. There's peer support groups. Same thing. They can go sit and talk to other people going through it and see, because I used to do that. I used to go to peer support thinking I was absolutely crazy because I'm leaving my keys in the freezer and I don't know why. And somebody else is like, oh my gosh, I keep finding mine in my laundry hamper. That's just weird, bizarre things that happen. But you wouldn't know that unless you're talking to other people that go through it. And so we need to just stop with this automatic thinking of what we're doing is working, because what we're doing isn't working. And we got to stop that narrative and realize where the gaps are and how we fill those gaps and how we communicate and how we support each other.
Tracy, when you were talking, all I could think was, you know how many times, like I've had to go and revamp my website and things like that. And, also, I'm revamping I'm revamping the Global Grief Network as well, because there's a huge network of people that I've had and that I still work with. I've just have not been active in it because I've been focusing on building up the Memories of Us, you know what I'm saying? But now it's getting to a point, Memories of Us is doing its own thing. It's beautiful. I'm working with other organizations across the world. And I'm going back to those individuals and going, hey, do you mind if I put your info on my website? Right. And just like how I reached out to, just like how when we said that, when you told me that you wanted to come on and do this and things like that. And I came up with the magazine. Again, this is the way my mind thinks. You mind if I take your info and put it in back for a resource and things like, how easy that is. And people will go, really? Yeah. You mind if I put you back there? So, you know what I'm saying? And have the article there so people know who you are. And then during the podcast, showcasing your knowledge and things like that. That is another way that we can help each other.
Yeah.
Because it's not about me. It's about the individuals that are out here doing their amazing work. Because for one, I realize the importance of working with these individuals because I know where my lane is.
Right.
And
but here's something else, though. Here's something else, Tony, to wrap your head around now, though. Because you're doing all this great work, and you've got the magazine now. You're getting your resources plugged into, your platforms and what you have. That's all awesome. Now, say I have somebody down the street who loses their child to suicide next week.
Mm-hmm.
How do we get the mess? The question is, how do we get the message to them that they should go find your stuff? Well, that's where we have to fall down at, is they wouldn't know.
It's the networking, right? Let's add to, because I'm gonna add to that, because I thought about this as well. It's the networking that you know. So it's the people that you know that are out there doing it. So if you know someone down the street, look, I'm a firm believer you should know everyone who's out there doing it, because you should be able to go, I got somebody for you. Maybe this situation is not for me. Like, maybe you don't have to refer them to me, right? You don't have to refer them. I'm just one guy out of the millions of people out here doing amazing work. I'm just a small portion of it, Tracy.
Right.
That's it. And I'm just trying to do my part, right? So you don't have to find me. I would say have that network. You have that network, right? and connect with those individuals. So when that person down there has lost someone due to suicide, you can go, I got somebody for you.
Yeah.
You should be able to do that, just as well as all of those other people. Everybody should know who you are and what you do.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where I try to bridge that gap. I don't want it to be about me. If you don't know who I am, that's fine, right? But if you know who I am, you know that I'm going. If it's not in my lane, I know someone. And if they don't do it, they know someone,
Mm-hmm.
right? And that's where I go. That's where we make the connection. There should never you should never have to go out and have to go search for these resources,
Right.
because you out there doing amazing work and you have the people that you know, and you can connect them with those individuals, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because you speak the language, you speak it better than me,
Sure.
right? Again, I'm just a small portion in this world, just trying to do something. But I realize that, you know what, if I know that I can connect this person with Tracy, and Tracy knows a ton of other people that do this work,
Mm-hmm.
and I know that when I refer them to you and things like that, they're in good hands.
Yeah.
And that's the key to it, right? Because we weed out those individuals that can do the damage, and then we bring in those individuals that can have the impact.
Yeah.
And those are the ones that we're bringing into our circle. So that's
It gets
where,
back to communication. Gets back
right,
to communicating who we know, what they do, and not being afraid to talk about the hard things.
Well,
Talking
you have
about
to have a
grief, talking about
relationship with
suicide.
individuals, right? That's why the importance of networking is building relationships with individuals, so you know what they do,
Yeah.
right?
Mm-hmm.
And so the goal is to never turn anyone away, never turn anyone away, and because when we turn them away, we turn them into their darkness. We turn them into their own thoughts
Mm-hmm.
of suicidal ideation, the shame, guilt, the hurt, the pain, everything that comes along with that, right?
Right.
So that's where I will go. I don't build up a network so you don't have to go search for Tony.
Exactly.
That you can have that information for them. Create an information pack, like the same things that I do. I want to encourage people to do that as well.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not gatekeeping anything. I just thought of an idea, and what maybe this is just another way to unite people. Because I'm in Colorado, I'm going to be effective, and I do online work as well. I'm going to be effective in these different areas.
Mm-hmm.
But I also want to make sure that people know that they are out there. I want them to know the Tracys. I want them to know the Lenny Hunts. I want them to know all the other individuals, the Claire Walsh's, Swartz, and the Dave Roberts. I want them to know all of these individuals.
Yeah.
I want them to know. I don't need the recognition. I just want the unification. That's it. And the relationships.
Yeah.
Because it's so much bigger than that. We talk, you mentioned the normalizing and things like that. That's how we do it. Look, we all speak the language of grief and trauma. We just, in some areas, you may be more fluent at speaking that language than I am. And I'm like, I think that's beautiful. Let's get together. I want to get to know who you are. And then when someone comes in and goes, Tony, look, I know a friend that's dealing with this. And I go, let me reach out to my network and see who I can bring in, because I got a relationship. I know who you are.
Mm-hmm.
And let me connect you with them.
Yeah.
Because I know they're going to take care of you. And I put it in your hands, and and I think we all, with all the many people that we know across the world, we should all have that mindset of, let's build this together.
Yeah.
Let's do it together. I'm no dummy. I know what my name looks like, you know what I'm saying? And I'm good at that. I'm good at that. I don't step outside of my lane because I know that, outside of my lane, I'm like a fish out of water.
Right.
So, I stick to what I know because that's where I'm effective.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm no dummy. I will swim with the sharks. I will swim with the sharks and be like, come here, follow me. Come on. I'm gonna take you over here and
Swim. Yeah.
Yeah, let's keep it swimming, right? And then when you turn around, the world becomes this place of people that are compassionate and mindful and educated. And I think that's where we have to have that connection and learning to want learning more to be better.
Yep.
But also, again, build that resource package in your neighbors, in your community, in your state. But don't be afraid to go outside the box and talk to that person over in New York or Florida or Texas and bring them in. Let me ask you a question.
Sure.
When is the last time that you've seen anyone put up someone else's info on their website?
Doesn't happen very often.
Doesn't happen very often.
Mm-mm.
And again, why is that? See, again, it goes back to what you said before. How, how do I point them to this individual? Well, if you got a website, why don't you put their info up there?
Yeah.
Why don't you ask them, would it be okay if I put your info on my website?
Mm-hmm.
Would it be okay if I bring you on my podcast so you can talk about these things? Would it be okay if I put your info in this magazine? Would it be okay if I can connect you with this other? What if we all did that?
Yeah.
We wouldn't
have to be talking about suicide prevention.
Exactly.
Because we would have been preventing it already because we'd have been supporting the people that need the support. And, at the beginning of you and I talking, I said, it's all about connection.
Right.
And of course, in that perspective, I was talking about, connecting to the people who are hurting, but connection, in this, at least in our field, between grief and prevention and loss and all of it, it's not just connecting with the people who need help. It's connecting with the people who do the work.
Right.
And it's one big, web of connecting with folks that are doing the work, that need the help, and getting the information out there. I mean, 30, 40 years ago, nobody talked about cancer. It was like, oh, they got cancer. We see cancer preventative, initiatives and how all over the place, and we don't think anything of it. We got to get to where suicide is the same thing. Oh, you're dealing with suicide, you're dealing with suicide loss. All of it should just be in our mainstream conversations. But it's going to take the connection of all of the folks that do the work of support and help. And it's going to take all of us getting together and saying, hey, you work in construction suicide, you work in workplace suicide, you work in grief and loss. Let's all get together on the same stage and talk about all of it. And then also let's talk about how we got to quit being afraid of the word suicide. We have to quit having these connotations to it that simply aren't true. We got to do better. I mean, I look back every time my daughter's anniversary date of her death comes around, I kind of do a little reflection, right? Of, okay, how better are we in this much time, since she passed? And, we're coming up on 18 years now, but at the 17-year mark, I'm looking back and I'm like, oh, I still have people that shy away from me because they don't want to talk about suicide.
Right.
It's like, we really haven't moved the needle all that much, sadly. We probably have more people working in the field out there, which is great. But why do we still have loss survivors who come to a support group and say, I didn't know that we have a suicide loss day every year? How come I didn't know that the AFSP has community walks to support, prevention? How come I didn't know that all of these organizations have stuff I can read? And it's like, and I have to sit there and go, I don't know why you don't know. Here's my stuff, but I don't know why you don't know about everybody else.
Right. But isn't that scary though? over the course, look, I can only speak for my 6 years. I'm pretty sure you've seen it when there was not that many resources out there. We look around now, those resources are there.
Yeah.
These people have been popping up because now people are starting to come out and see the importance. But I think where the challenge comes is that we have a lot of people that are passionate about getting the education and wanting to help those individuals, but we don't have the people that have the lived experience connected with those individuals.
Yeah.
And for me, and for many people like myself, we're heart-centered around this thing. We understand, we get it. And I look at my 6 years, and in the beginning, being, jumping into the grief field, I've watched it grow substantially. You got to weed out the good. You got to weed out the bad. Those out there doing damage because they thought it was a great idea to go and do it until they got into it and they realized that maybe this is not for you, right?
Yeah.
And I can only speak from that aspect of it. Talk about when you first got into it, and what did you see versus what you see now, and what changes have been made, and how do you foresee the changes that need to be made?
So when I started, Facebook wasn't a thing. So MySpace was going on. I wasn't in MySpace, but my daughter was. And so I had to find my local support group via old school newspaper. So I had to find a classified ad in the newspaper to find where I needed to go.
Right.
So I think when we gained like Facebook, and I know a lot of people don't like Facebook, but Facebook did serve a purpose in that there's a lot of support groups. There's a lot of private support groups on there. With suicide, you have a lot of people that want to be in the private groups where they can't get attacked by people who haven't experienced it or don't understand. So I think, and then there's Alliance for Hope. That's a website that they do online forums. So you can get in there and you can, talk in real time at 2 a.m. to other people that, are going through it too. So I think social media with these groups has made a real difference in being able to boost peer support.
Right.
I think we're still lacking in, again, organizations that don't get their support out there as well as I think they should. Again, I gauge it all from what do I hear from loss survivors directly. And when they say, I didn't know there was anything out there, that tells me that whatever organizations are doing isn't working. But I've seen, particularly like the last 2 years when we're in Suicide Prevention Month of September, I'm seeing more just chatter, right, in different social media feeds about people saying, I'm kind of struggling, or, I lost somebody and I don't know what to do. People being less apologetic for saying they've lost somebody to suicide, which is good.
Right.
But yeah, I still think we have a long way to go. And I think you hit it beautifully when you said, we need to connect with other organizations like ourselves and say, hey, can I share your stuff? Can I let people know what you're doing? I think, again, like you just said, we have the people that come in, think they're going to work in the field, do great things, and then realize it's not for them and they back out, which I would rather them do that than cause harm because they shouldn't be there. But I think there's so much in and out and start and stop with this that, you think you have a list of resources and then you find out a year later that half of them aren't in business anymore. And so there's this constant change, right? This constant updating, constant change.
Yeah, that's true.
So I think that leads back to, why aren't we sharing, right? Like for myself, it's a lot of work for me to find out and update all the time of who's working and doing what. Therefore, if I know what I'm doing, right? So I stick to my own stuff and I share that.
Mm-hmm.
But that defeats the purpose of tying it all together with everybody else's stuff. So,
Exactly.
there's a lot of work that needs to be done. There's
Oh,
different,
yeah.
aspects of it that we still need to work on. I like to hope going forward
Mm-hmm.
that we can be more proactive in our
Mm-hmm.
language and getting the word out. I mean, like a beautiful thing that really excited me was there's a nonprofit called the Casey Project in Massachusetts, started by a gentleman named Steve Palm, who lost his daughter Casey to suicide. And he takes his nonprofit and he shares information about, suicide prevention. And he went and he rented a billboard in town, and he asked a bunch of people, can I take pictures of who you lost and put them up on this billboard? So my daughter Chelsea, her picture's up on this billboard, and he was highlighting the 988 suicide hotline number.
Mm-hmm.
Big, beautiful billboard with these kids' pictures on them that we'd lost to suicide. And if you're struggling, call 988. And it's on this major thoroughfare that goes through through Massachusetts. And people driving down the road can see the 988 message. And oh my gosh, here's these kids that died, and we can do better. And, how can, oh my gosh, I can call 988. And I mean, I wish I was in Massachusetts because I would hug Steve. And I've told him this, I would hug Steve and say, that is brilliant that you just put out, a couple grand that was donated to you. You put out a couple grand, put all this messaging up on this billboard that thousands of people are seeing every day as they go to work, go wherever. That's the kind of stuff that we need out there. And it was just one little itty bitty nonprofit that nobody's heard of. And now you have, because the Casey Project, I'm putting it all over your channel here.
Oh no, please, look, do it. Right?
Could I have, put up a billboard? Sure. But I'm going to say Steve did this in memory of his daughter, has put this out, and who knows how many thousands of people this has helped, because somebody was driving to work and they're like, I'm really struggling. I don't know how much more I can take of my life. And there's the 988 number up on a billboard saying you're not alone and you matter. What if that one person called 988 and they're still here today because somebody in crisis support was able to help them?
I want to add to that as well, right? Because I've thought about that. It's becoming more of a reality the more and more I grow into this field. I'm still a pup in this thing. You know what I'm saying? I'm still a pup. I like to think that I'm making a big barking loud enough, but I'm still a pup, right? You know what I'm saying? I'm still learning. I'm still growing, and I'm getting better at what I do, and that's the only thing I can hope to do, right?
Yeah.
And so when it comes down to being creative and things like that, I look at the billboards, because I thought about this some years ago. I just didn't have the money to do it. Because they wanted like $10,000, and I don't get donations. I don't get grants or anything like that. So a lot of times this money comes out of my own pocket. Mm-hmm. And so I will go out and do guest speaking and things like that. I would travel just to do guest speaking so I can get the word out there. And, I'm constantly dropping information off so people have these resources, things like that. And I was just like, you know what? $10,000 is really not a lot of money. Mm-hmm. It is when you don't have it. Right. So don't get me wrong. Right. You know what I'm saying? By no means am I rich.
Amen to that.
You know what I'm saying? But I look at that and I go, if I got that $10,000, I would do a billboard and put my face up there, put the organization up there and talking about what I do. Mm-hmm. And then right underneath that, for more resources, go check out my website. Right. Because the goal is I want people to come to my website because those resources are going to be there.
Yeah.
Go check out this magazine, the Grief Talk magazine, for more resources. Mm-hmm. Right. And this is my way of saying, although I am promoting myself, when they go to the website and see your information, or they pick up that magazine, they realize that this magazine is dedicated to grief, trauma, and mental health. And the people in there have these amazing stories. Like for everybody, Tracy wrote an article. It's going to be in a magazine, and her information is going to be there as well. So you guys, if you haven't already, reach out to me. I'm going to be putting up a post, so that magazine will be dropping this month. All right. And we're going to continue growing. We're going to continue bringing more people in and things like that. So be sure to let me know so I can get you a copy. It will be subscription based. So, you know what I'm saying? Once we get everything set up, if you want it to be sent to your house every month, we're going to be able to do that. And things like that. Because again, you know, the money that I make from there is going to help to do the billboards. It's going to help to do bigger things. It's going to help to build a bigger platform to be able to showcase amazing stories and people, resources, etc. You know, and again, I'm just one small person out here trying to do something, and I'm trying to develop my bark to be loud enough, right? You know what I'm saying? That's all I'm trying to do.
You're doing
right?
good. Yeah.
And I'm just moving. Look, I'm just here to walk other people where they are, but I also see the importance of being able to do that. And so that billboard, although it's going to have that information, I want people to look at it because I want that impact. I do. I want that impact. I want to let people know. And, you know, and it always makes me feel as if I don't work hard enough. And I think that's what pushes me to keep doing what I do. And I want to inspire other people or encourage other people. You know what I'm saying? Do your thing, please. You know what I'm saying? Do your thing. Like Rachel, you know what I'm saying? I'm calling y'all Rachel. She's a beautiful graphic artist. She helped me out with my new logo and everything. So you guys will be seeing that as well. And and she's passionate. Look, she's beautiful at what she does. Very creative. Very, very beautiful at what she does. And just that little thing right there, bring a recognition, right? Things like that. Go check her out, please. And she's out there, you know, and she reached out to me, and now she's helping me do a new animation and I got your ideas. I'm going to reach out to you. I just got a lot of things going on today. I just got back to the States, so just bear with me a little bit. Be a little patient. Don't beat me up too bad, okay? But it's doing things like that, and letting your creativity flow. But if I can do something like that, right? And I'm just a poor boy from Virginia. I'm just small. I'm just a small guy in the whole big scheme of this world. And if I can do something like that, and if I can raise another 10,000 and go, Tracy, if I gave you 10,000, would you be able to put up a billboard in your state as well? You know what I'm saying? I would give that to you. I would no strength. No, don't pay me back. Here, take it. Put up a billboard and do your thing. But then I go, when you get 10,000, reach out to the next person so they can do the thing. The goal is, again, there's always different ways of advertising and marketing, right? Yeah. If I was to do that for you, could you pay it forward to the next person?
Absolutely.
And then when they get $10,000, have them pay it forward to the next person, and so forth and so forth. Do you know what sort of impact that would have to ride down the street and see a billboard with all of these different resources? Oh my God. Come on now, talk about changing the narrative.
And again, all year round, not just the months that, you know, we designate for, you know, certain topics.
Right. But that's the goal though, right? That is definitely the goal. And that's my goal. I want to be able to do something like that. Maybe if I've got $50,000, I can reach out to 5 different people and go get a billboard. I'm not asking for nothing in return because I don't want anything in return. I want people to heal. That's it. I want them to heal and have the right resources. And that's always going to be my mission. Always. Of course, I'm doing my part over here, but I want to. That's something that I've always stayed true to, and I'll always stay true to that. If I have it, I'm going to give it. But of course, I'm going to try mine first. I encourage people to go out there and start your own magazine. I encourage people to go out there and connect with those individuals, you know, And with your podcast, don't make your podcast about you. Make it about the person that's on here doing it, because it's your bravery, it's your knowledge, and it's your story, it's your journey, and it should be about you. It should be. And me personally, I just think there should be more of that.
Yeah.
So much more of that, because I find it beautiful when you can connect and build and things like that. Because I would love to come to a retreat that you're doing, right? Just to be a part of what you're doing, just to sit and be educated by you, to expand my knowledge.
You and I'll talk, because I'm thinking about putting together an event in 2026.
Well, you ain't saying nothing but a word, I'm telling you.
Yeah, well, I might have to have some grief type of topics there. So, connect on that.
Well, we
No
definitely will. Again, every time we get on here, we talk forever. But I want to give away too much, because I want people to read your article in the magazine as well. But before I let you go, I want to say this has been a beautiful talk, and I would love to have you come back and we can dive deeper into it again. You know what I'm saying? Whatever you want to talk about, let's talk about it. So let's do it again. But before I let you go, tell people where they can find you.
Thank you. So I'd started with Journey Through Grief, 10 years ago. And it got so big because I'm trying to support loss survivors directly, but then I'm also educating people about what suicide loss looks like and all that. I had to split it into two companies. So I have Journey Through Grief, which is our direct support. So it's Journey Through, it's THRU grief.com. So if you know a loss survivor, they need resources, coaching, send them there. Then I also have Postvention Collective. That's our training site. The word postvention is in there because people say, well, what is that? That gives me the opportunity to say that's our support for loss survivors of suicide. So postvention.com, journeythroughgrief.com. We also have a podcast. We also have the YouTube channel. A lot of stuff going on. I have a new book. So if you have a loss survivor that needs a resource immediately, just so they don't feel like overwhelmed, go to Journey Through Grief's website. The link's in there. The podcast Journey Through Your Suicide Loss. It's on Spotify. It's on Apple. It's on all of them. I just implore people to go check out what I'm doing. I'm on LinkedIn, Facebook, Journey Through Grief, Postvention Collective, and myself. We're all on Facebook. Connect and let's see what we can do together to, again, move the needle to decrease loss survivors out there, because if we can stop suicide, we have less loss survivors. And I want to keep them all here so they don't further die by suicide. So, like Tony said, let's all get together and work together and do good things.
You sent me all of your links as well, right?
I did.
So you're for everyone who's just tuning in, and if you missed this episode, or if you would like to know more about Tracy, go down below, check out her links, go there, and let her know that where you saw her at, but also go check out her podcast, go to her YouTube channel. Like I said, very, very amazing individual. She's doing out there doing amazing work. So please connect with her, let her know, and show her some support as well, you guys. And for everyone who has been tuning in, thank you guys for your continued support. You guys already know how we do this. If you haven't already, again, we will be switching platforms real soon. It's going to be the same channels. We're just going to be switching platforms to be able to do bigger things, and be able to do some more amazing work out here as well. You guys go over to the YouTube channel, hit that subscribe button, hit that bell notification, let people know that we're out here doing it. This is our effort in normalizing the conversations around death, dying, and grief, trauma, suicides, addictions, and all of those different things. And again, doing a small part can have a bigger impact with the people that you're connected with as well. And always, as always, Tracy, we're going to be doing this again. And we'll talk a little bit more after. But for everyone who's tuning in, thank you for your continued support. Remember, tomorrow's not promised to anyone. So make sure that you let those people know that you care. And just keep in mind that we're just walking each other to our next destination. This is going to conclude this episode of the Grief Let's Talk About It podcast. You guys already know how we do it. And we're going to see you guys in the next one. We do have a panel discussion coming up here a little bit later today. So be sure to tune into that Ancestral Healing podcast, Ancestral Healing series. We're doing Pulling Back the Layers. I do have my co-host, Andrew Brunswick. She's going to be there with me. And hopefully we can bring on some other guests on there to help dive deeper into that as well, because it's all a healing journey. It's all a healing journey. And you guys, take care of yourself. Happy Saturday to you. Thank you for bringing this awareness to us. I've learned so much and will continue to learn so much from my dear friend, Tracy. And we're going to be doing this again. So you guys have a great day. See you in the next one.
Bye-bye.